So this is the KhoodeelaarTV television channel, broadcasting under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions. This is part A of Sunday, the 16th of April 2023. The Baby Angel Geronimo editions are broadcast only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, and not on cable networks. Khoodeelaar. Now, Khoodeelaar is a joined up word. The lar, L-A-A-R, lar, the ending, indicates that a third party or person or thing is doing something negative, doing something hastily, and doing something to expedite the destruction of positive things in the surroundings, in the neighborhood, in the area. Khoodeelaar. And khudi is the digging. And Khoodeelaar is the third party. The enemies are digging the hole in Brick Lane, the crossrail hole. They plot to dig a big hole in Brick Lane. That was the plot. And the lar is similar in meaning to the French word oya. So like the town crier of old, shouting warning to the local people in the town and in the city, alerting them. So Khoodeelaar is a word that I devised to mean that the crossrail hole plot was going to be ratified and become legitimized for digging a big hole in Brick Lane. That would mean the destruction of the community that had developed in and around Brick Lane over the previous 100 years or so, especially providing a unique home base for the people coming from thousands of miles away from Silot, which is geographically part of Assam, which now is part of India, but before 1947, Silot was a big part of the province of Assam, ASSAM. And the people of Assam, part of the population in Assam, even today, speak and understand Siloti, KhoodeelaarTV. So, I speak Siloti, and with a few changes here and there, the Ohomia language, which is the other language of Assam, based on the Ohomia language, Ohomia people, it sounds very similar to the Siloti language. Anyone who wants to test that can tune into Radio Assam and tune into a Siloti language broadcast. And there are these minor differences in pronunciation and conjunctions But essentially, the Siloti and the Ohomia sound very similar. And that actually takes the comparison also between Ohomia and Assami and the Bangla language. So there are three languages there: Siloti, Ohomia, and Bangla. That have got a lot in common. In fact, the Siloti and Ohomia are very similar. One written, the Ohomia script, is very much similar visually to the script that is used to write Bangla. The original Siloti that I learned when I was a child was written in what is called Devanagari. In Siloti, it became Devanagari. And because of the various negative cultural impetus being inflicted on the part of East Pakistan, as it then was, between 1947 and 16th of December 1971. The use of the Devanagari script has been replaced, but it cannot be eliminated because Devanagari is actually the script, the original script, which is used to write the Hindi language and many of the Indian languages. So today we are talking about the Weekend Financial Times, which is published on Saturdays, and it covers the Saturday and the Sunday. And in this edition of the FT Weekend, there is a piece written by a woman called Sophie, what's her name? Sophie Roberts. And it is Down the Brahmaputra. Now, the Brahmaputra is the river that originates in Tibet, and it comes all the way through Assam, and it enters into Bangladesh and becomes the river Jamuna. And this is the size of the Financial Times is bigger than tabloid, twice the size of the tabloid. So it's called the broadsheet. The broadsheet size, which is this. So it's a very difficult thing to get this camera to capture this. But that is the Financial Times piece. Just about a glimpse of it. That is the thing. Down the Brahmaputra. You can just about read this. Down the Brahmaputra. And that is the piece that is in the Financial Times, page 7 of the travel section. And it is very interesting. Not because of the substance, but because of the stupidity and the criminal denial of the true facts of Assam. It's a piece written in a kind of style of a traveler or a travel writer. But the editorial decision was made to leave out all the main substance and facts of the Indian state of Assam and the neighboring Indian states as well as Bangladesh, because although Sophie Roberts mentions the Ohomia people, she doesn't mention the Bangladeshi people And she doesn't mention the Hindus or the Muslims in Assam, which is what really matters. And she mentions the Ohomia people being linked with the Myanmar, but she doesn't mention the genocide that took place in 2017 in Myanmar, which is Burma, of the Muslims of Rohingya. Rohingya is also known as the Arakan region in Burma. So, contrary to the Burmese propaganda, the Arakan region in Burma has been in existence for centuries. And the Arakan region, outside of what used to be East Pakistan and what is now Bangladesh, Arakan region had independent demographic constitution based on, and its religious composition was based on people coming from Arabic countries, Arabia directly, through sea trade and so on. And that took place hundreds of years before either the French or the Dutch or the Portuguese or the East India Company ever had any presence in the subcontinent. And the subcontinent includes Burma in context as well. So the Sophie Roberts down the Brahmaputra is a deliberately ignorant and misleading perpetration of a set of lies. Because, for example, the RSS regime, which is fronted by the thing called Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, fronted by the criminal, still to be prosecuted properly for the crimes against humanity in his role in the massacres of the Muslims in 2002 in Gujarat, Narendra Modi. Modi and Amit Shah, the so-called Home Secretary, have reorganized the entire Indian population based on religion, focusing on Kashmir and on Assam and Meghalaya and the neighboring states, intending to de-recognize Muslims, original Muslims that have been there for hundreds of years in the states that are now part of the Republic of India. So these are the issues. I mean, this particular introduction is not going to be extensive item by item, but just as an updater introduction, I'm just referring to this and contextually taking this narrative back to Pakistan because of the slogan that the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has been advocating and advancing by calling it the movement for Hakiki Azadi. The Hakiki Azadi is a reference to the true independence from the British imperialists in 1947. And I've said quite a few times now that the Hakiki Azadi is the appropriate slogan and the appropriate agenda. But it is doomed to be destroyed by the inaction that Imran Khan and the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf are accused of, and actually they have not carried out the work. And this key telling thing that I have said to Imran Khan is this: if Hakiki Azadi is in fact, truthfully, a reference to what happened to the subcontinent starting on the 14th of August 1947, then how is it that there is no reference to what happened to what is now Bangladesh and what was East Pakistan between 14th August and 16th of December 14th of August 1947 and 16th of December 1971? What happened in those 23 years? It may not be something that Imran Khan wants to admit to, but that is something that, if left out of the discussion about the Haque Azadi, will completely destroy the Haque Azadi generally. Because everything that happened during the year 1971, which became known after the 16th of December 1971, including the numbers of massacres and random killing of people, innocent people. What happened to those people who decided that the civilian people in East Pakistan should be even attacked, let alone be murdered, let alone be, many of the people were raped? Who decided? Under what term, of what hakikat, what real Hakiki Azadi, and what narrative? And what mandate? From where? Because the people responsible for the murders and massacres of these civilians in East Pakistan in 1971 have been mentioned collectively. But internationally, like the International Human Rights Court based in the European city of Hague, none of these people has been put on trial. Why not? And if Hakiki Azadi is to mean Hakiki Azadi, then Imran Khan and any other supporters from other parties or non-parties, ordinary people in Pakistan today, should be supporting the putting on trial of all the people who were responsible for the deaths, massacres, rapes of all the people in East Pakistan during 1971. There is no mention of any of that need in any of the narrative that I have seen or heard presented by Imran Khan at any of his rallies. Of course, the rallies are now no longer being as hectic as they were a few months ago, but the rallies, I followed most of the rallies on a daily basis because they were accessible on some of the outlets. And my understanding is that Imran Khan was getting tremendous popular support in the context of the opposition that he was representing to the Pakistan Khud government, fronted by one of the Sharifs. But neither Imran Khan nor any of his close colleagues who have been speaking at the rallies has spoken about the events of 1971 and the meaning of the Hakiki Azadi. The only reference that has been made to East Pakistan was at a brief seminar held in Lahore, organized by lawyers. And one speaker, who spoke about 10 minutes or so, actually told the truth. He was the only one who told the truth about who the Pakistanis were. He said that the real Pakistan was in East Pakistan, not in West Pakistan, not in Pakistan today. He said the real Pakistan was in East Pakistan. I cannot make it clearer. And that man was the only one who pointed that out. And he explained that in brief. And he referred to the events of 1905, which is when the Bengal that was there, West Bengal and East Bengal, became separated, divided. And the reason why the Bengal was divided was because people of East Pakistan, well, East Bengal in 1905, there was no East Pakistan in 1905, but people approximated to what became East Pakistan after the referendum of 1947 that created the inclusion of Silot away from Assam and into what became East Pakistan. So there was this agitation in East Bengal, agitation led by, among others, Fazlul Haq and Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani, because the main produce, the main kind of goods that were produced in East Bengal by the people doing the farms and agricultural produce were being processed by West Bengal, and the main income went to people processing the economic products in West Bengal, denying the people who actually produce the products of the benefits. So that was 1905 when the demand for separate autonomy for East Bengal was irresistible. It was a constitutional, legal, lawful movement based on the highest level of arguments and logic and evidence, and it was accepted by the British. That is one part. The other part is that the Muslim League, the All India Muslim League, which was set up in Dhaka at the same time, 1905. So the man who spoke at the Lahore small gathering of lawyers was referring to those two events. And there, the movement for what became Pakistan actually was founded. That is what this man was saying. And that is what Maulana Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani was saying when he said during the 1960s, especially in response to the repressive actions by Ayub Khan and his military martial law regime. And he said, Assalamu alaikum, I am going. I mean, that was Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani reiterating, updating emphatically what had been done in 1905 by the people of East Bengal. So the role of Abdul Hamid Khan Bashani was one which was ignored by the popular kind of party that was the one that was in bargain for power in East Pakistan, which is the Awami League. And I played a part in interrogating Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in the 1960s. As I have said, I asked him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 questions in a row at a rally or a sitting, a meeting, very peaceful meeting, absolutely peaceful, held at the Institute of Engineers in Dhaka in the 1960s. Not long after, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was kicked out of the government by Ayub Khan. Now, if I were present during the various meetings that took place in the beginning of 1971 at Dhaka between Zulfikar Bhutto and Shah Mujib and his Awami League colleagues, if I were present there, I would have made the difference. But I wasn't made aware of these meetings, or I was not invited, let's say, because I was not a member of their party and I was not a member of any party. Because I had reduced Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's arguments or his preamble at the Institute of Engineers to something that was not substantiated by evidence. And I kept adding rigor to each question that I put to him after the previous one. And Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was intellectually, evidentially having to retreat until the 9 questions that I had asked, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto became emotionally overcome by frustration. Now that showed that he had not come across an interrogation of that kind anywhere. Because had he come across any interrogation that I put him through, he would have been able to deal with the questions that I put to him. But more importantly, those other people that were there, I would say that the Institute of Engineers was, my recollection is that it was packed up, but it was the Institute of Engineers. It wasn't a kind of mass rally. It was a gathering of people, several, I would say, about several hundred people, whatever the number. It wasn't thousands because the sitting capacity was very limited. And Zulfikar Ali Bhutto wanted to have that platform. That was the launch platform that he had decided to use in order to mount his campaign, or what he saw as the campaign to win mainly people in under 30s in East Pakistan, intellectuals, what he would assume would be the people that were making the decisions, political decisions at various levels in terms of the movement. And that, he thought, would have attracted the substantiation against Ayub Khan's regime, that he, Bhutto, was supported by supporters both from West Pakistan and from East Pakistan. Now, as Bhutto did later during the 1971 appearance against the United Nations over what was happening in East Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was not able to maintain a coherent, consistent, let's say, approach throughout the debate. Instead, in the 1971 appearance against the United Nations, he issued quite out of order, if you like, an unconstitutional, undiplomatic, unstatesperson-like utterances, including referring to his determination to carry on fighting whatever he thought he was fighting for 1,000 years. Now, by all accounts, and that was my only meeting with Bhutto. I mean, I was on the kind of ground among the audience, and Bhutto was on the stage. That was the only meeting. We didn't come proximate. We stayed the distance. But if that was the evidence of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's capacities and fitness for leadership, then I'm afraid he failed. Now, I didn't go there to defeat him. I didn't go there to expose him. I did what I do normally, and I have been doing. This is not something that I did exceptionally. This is what I do. I ask questions based on evidence. I have no other purpose except to establish the truth, the fact, the hakiki, azadi, the hakiki reality. Now, the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto failed there, and he failed in the United Nations. And he also failed when he invited, he fell into the trap of Indira Nehru, because Indira Nehru was the incumbent as India's Prime Minister. And he, Zulfikar Bhutto, should not have welcomed these air pilots that had staged a bogus flight of Indian aircraft into Pakistan territory. That was the last thing that Bhutto should have done. But by doing that, by welcoming them personally, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto instantly gave Indira Nehru the maximum publicity worldwide that she actually plotted. And she needed and she got. She immediately followed by banning Pakistan aircraft flying over India between East and West Pakistan. Well, that was one of the consequences. The other was even more damaging, which was to lose the democratic argument and sovereignty argument vis-a-vis India. So Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was a university lecturer in law for a short time before he went to Pakistan and was invited by Ayub Khan to join his government. What kind of lawyer was he? He seemed to be technically a lawyer, but he didn't know how to apply the law, did he? Which is why he made the biggest blunder by denying the people whatever the defects in the election, the December 1970 election. Those people who were elected from both wings of then Pakistan, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto completely failed to understand the basic, absolutely basic mandate that he should have recognized. Instead of doing that, instead of welcoming the election result, and instead of congratulating Shah Mujib for winning the majority numbers of seats at the National Assembly, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto declared war. And he said that any MNA, that is member of the National Assembly of Pakistan, elected at the December 1970 election, Pakistan election, anyone who went to Dhaka to attend the inaugural session, the Sheikh Mujib would have been entitled to convene and hold, would have been beaten up. That is not the word or the prescription or the narrative or the response of the leader of the second biggest numerical kind of party in the potential prospective Pakistan National Assembly. So these are the items that I have mentioned now, updated contextually by putting these together after my references to Imran Khan failing as well. Because whatever the defects are in the democratic discourse, conspiracy and spying and all those things may have a place, but they cannot take the substance of the real thing, which is the real interaction with the population in a democracy. When the Pakistan National Television Channel in January 1970, that is 53 years ago, led their evening bulletin with me as the main item of news. What did they do that for? They didn't do that for any party political reason. They didn't do that because I had an agreement with them or anything. I didn't even know that they were filming my speech. But I had spoken at a gathering of university chancellors and college principals held at the Institute of Education, I think, the University of Dhaka in January 1970. And the main evening news of that day led with me, and whatever they said was the substance of what I had said. And the substance of what I had said at my kind of short kind of participation, because I was invited when I went there to protest against the gathering, and they invited me to go and address the whole gathering. That's how it happened. And I had said that they had got all their main priorities wrong, because they were talking about politics in terms of the politicization of university and college campuses. And they were trying to say that, there there should be measures to kind of reduce those activities. That could not happen. My point, and I'm not in possession of the transcript of what I said, but what I must have said was that I criticized them for organizing it in that way, and also criticized them for trying to tell the students to deny the reality and the responsibility. And I said the future of the country depended on telling the truth about what was happening. Words to that effect, which is what I've been saying all along, before that and since that. So Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, I think, has left a legacy of errors on many levels, and Imran Khan should not be ignoring those errors. Imran Khan should be stopping the shielding of his, whoever it is that he is shielding. It is reported that he had a relation, that one of the generals, Pakistan Army generals, in post in relation to East Pakistan in 1971, was related to Imran Khan, Niazi. Now, I have absolutely no information about any knowledge that Imran Khan has or does not have about what this General Niazi did or didn't do, whether he unilaterally, in terms of making the decision personally, decided to massacre these people, I don't know. But Imran Khan should be looking for the evidence, full evidence, and going through the items of fact that has been admitted already by the Hamudur Rahman Commission. And starting without any delay, I've been saying this for the entire period since Imran Khan became the Prime Minister in Pakistan, that this was the opportunity to start by apologizing without any condition, apologizing to the people of East Pakistan for the attacks by the military forces that are supposed to be for Pakistan. And that must be an apology without any condition. And secondly, Imran Khan should begin the process of having the state of Pakistan make an approach internationally for all kinds of help from any humanitarian agencies and the United Nations General Assembly as well, in making reparations, compensations to the people who are survivors of the attacks by the Pakistan Army, and making the survivors sufficiently compensated and solidarized with. And there has to be an open action or series of actions. It is remarkable that Imran Khan made an insulting comment about the people of Dhaka being supporters of the Pakistan cricket team. He didn't mention the events of 71 that murdered and raped and massacred so many people. I mean, when that happened, and he mentioned that he was impressed by the supporters, Bangladeshi supporters of Pakistan cricket team. That is completely insulting. But I'm not going to hold that against Imran Khan forever. Why? Because I think that despite the fact that he made that is a very foolish statement. I suppose it's product of inexperience. He should now know, especially after what he has himself said about the elements within the Pakistan army now that are hostile to democracy, hostile to the people, and hostile to the purpose of Pakistan, as defined by Imran Khan, because he says there are three sources. Imran Khan has said that there are three sources for the Hakiki Pakistan or Hakiki Azadi Pakistan. One source is Muhammad Iqbal, the other source is Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the most important source is the Prophet of Islam, peace be on him. Now, under none of the things that he has said as being his source or sources can the attacks on the women, the men, children in East Pakistan in 1971 can be tolerated, accepted at all? Now, the irony is that in East Pakistan, what is as Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina staged her version of the so-called war crime tribunal, whatever. Amazing, isn't it? This is the most cowardly thing for Hasina to have done. Instead of demanding the trial of the Pakistani generals, she picks on a group of the most defenseless and cornered cowards and accuses them of all kinds of things that they could not have possibly done, except a few things. Well, I wasn't there, but I'm only going by what I have read. Whatever I have read does not come anywhere near comparing the crimes of the Pakistani generals and the Pakistani soldiers. So there was no proportion, there was no truth. And Sheikh Hasina didn't put those people internationally on international tribunal or on trial at The Hague. That therefore discredited whatever the purpose. And Hasina, of course, did that because she knew huge discrepancies and contradictions in her case. I am not speaking for any of these people. I'm saying that the whole thing was a charade. It may have included people who were actually guilty of the things that they were accused of, but the majority of the proceedings were contrary to the international rule, internationally agreed codes for trial. So Hasina should not be congratulated for doing that. She herself should be put through a process whereby she is required to explain why so many people who are not responsible for anything were targeted under the banner of having done war crimes against the innocent people. Now, this actually goes back to the United Nations. And what the United Nations has done, the United Nations has washed its hands of the 1971 crimes committed by the Pakistan military. That is the main thing. Whoever colluded with them as civilians from East Pakistan population was colluding with them, not making the decisions. The main decisions were made by the Pakistan army. And what Imran Khan doesn't seem to understand is that no matter how strong his own determination may be against the current military regime or the establishment in Pakistan, his criticism of the Pakistan regime, either the Sharifs, or the extension of the Bhuttos, cannot come anywhere near in the moral height of the claim against them. That would be the case if he, Imran Khan, and the Tehreek-e-Insaf leadership were to demand full disclosure, full accountability, and the real full surrender by the army or on behalf of the army. Because some of those people who were generals and in senior positions have by now passed away, including the Niazi. Now, if Imran Khan made such a responsible, overdue pledge and demand that what they did in 1971 to the people of East Pakistan, they should account for fully, that would have unprecedented impact across the world and in real terms. Imran Khan will not be breaking any of the sacred pledges to defend Pakistan by doing that. He would be strengthening it. But in order to make that case, he has to do that diplomatic and public arguments justifying the accountability. The other point is that he can immediately genuinely score a very high point in the comparison with the Modi-fronted, Amit Shah-fronted corruption called the Indian Republican government. Because in India, well, it is daily admitted, that the Indian courts, the judicial bureaucracies, are sham. They are actually serially devising excuses to allow the criminals to get away. Criminals like Narendra Modi, Amit Shah, and others. And the fact that they have focused on Rajiv Nehru's son, Rahul, and secured a conviction for defamation shows the corruption of the Indian court system, the bureaucracy. And it also shows the poverty of the Nehru dynasty in defending the people and democracy in India. Because Jawaharlal Nehru himself really founded the regime that came into power in 2014. It took that long. Nehru defied the United Nations resolutions. It's not like I'm making up. The United Nations resolutions about Kashmir were defied by Jawaharlal Nehru. And the British were complicit with him. The Americans were complicit with him. The Russians and the Chinese and the French. So the demography of Kashmir has been undergoing transformation in a way that Nazis in Germany were plotting by eliminating targeted ethnicities and religious groups. That's what is happening in Kashmir. So instead of bickering, Imran Khan should be talking about the real Hakiki Azadi, the implication. Because Pakistan was not just a territory. It was an ideological settlement. The ideological settlement has been vindicated by the events of India under the successive regimes. The current one is the fascistic one, the more fascistic one, fronted by Modi and Amit Shah. But even before the RSS came into power through them, the previous regimes, even one fronted by Indira Nehru, they were doing the same things. They were discriminating against targeted people, hundreds of millions. How is it that the population of the so-called scheduled castes is many times that of the entire population of the Western European countries, singular countries? And yet these people are being violated on an hourly basis and have been violated for what? It is now 76 years since August 1947. So the Hakiki Azadi that Imran Khan talks about is a false slogan when it is not including the denial of human rights by the Indian regimes, the human rights of the people of India. Well, that is something that Imran Khan cannot avoid doing, cannot fail to do. Now, we shall be, of course, continuing with the updates. Now, back to some of the local issues. Now, in the Sunday Times today, there is a culture, the culture kind of supplement in the Sunday Times today, which is so embarrassingly stupid. I have to put this up before the camera if I can get hold of it. This is not the British Library, so the materials are not systematically organized, but this is the, well, I'll come to the this is the culture bulletin. This is the culture supplement of the Sunday Times. It comes with the magazine package, let's say, April the 16th, 2023. and it has got a cover picture of a man called Morgan Freeman at 85, followed by two smaller sized letters naming Sidney Poitier and Denzel Washington and him. That is him. If the camera can, that is the bit that I can manage to get there. Okay. So that's Morgan Freeman. Now the stupidity of the whoever it is, apparently it's a new editor of the Sunday Times magazine. Whether it's she behind this or not, I don't know. But the piece is called Cover Story on the Culture Bulletin. And the byline is Jonathan Dean. Dean is spelled in Dean of the Faculty. It's an outrageously stupid headline or heading. Well, it's headline and heading as well. It says, an audience with a Hollywood god. Fuck them. Hollywood has no god. Hollywood is a collection or the personifications of evilness. And as Stanley Kubrick has reportedly said, I mean, I don't have the date in front of me, but Stanley Kubrick, who made the film A Clockwork Orange, the film based on Anthony Burgess's book of the same name, A Clockwork Orange. In an interview, Stanley Kubrick said, and I call that an authoritative enough admission, that a movie is not a moral messenger. I'm paraphrasing him, of course, but essentially that is true. And if you look at the actual history of the last, let's say, 100 years of the monopoly domination of the movie market across the world, movies made by, controlled by, marketed by, scripted by Americans, Hollywood, you can see that all the movies are amoral, some even immoral. But the middle of the road ones that are not outrageously scripted are also morality free. How do I say that? How do you say that? You can only say that by looking at the actual consequences, the impact. What movie made either by Hollywood or made under similar circumstances, similar narrative, similar scripts from other locations, same influences. What movie has changed the world? Which one? Changed the world from being in control or controlled by the corrupt banks, big businesses, the capitalists, and the military industrial complex. Ironically, a phrase that has been attributed to an American observer, repeated by various American politicals. The military industrial complex is active today. And I was thinking about the response from the British so-called journalists, especially in the Times on Saturday, by this columnist, Matthew Paris. Paris thinks that Joe Biden is past it and that he should not seek to get elected a second time. And I was thinking about the reason why they're focusing on Biden being unfit for office any longer. And I think there is a more than substantial, more than a, let's say, rumor that Biden has actually spent his time in Ireland and reaffirmed his Irishness. And the so called English appeared to be not so impressed by that. So that's the reason temporarily. But the other thing is that when Biden said that the USA should have left Afghanistan, ended the occupation of Afghanistan sooner, he was absolutely right. But he completely messed up and came across as totally immoral and dishonest by not talking about the Guantanamo Bay. What on earth are these people being held prisoners on that Cuban island now? What are these detainees being kept in detention to prevent? Because most of the evidence that has been published, and these are not evidence that has been gathered by looking at leaked sources and materials. These are openly admitted facts. There is no justice on the Guantanamo Bay. And this takes us back to the mental slave and complete crook, Barack Obama. What the fuck was he president for? He didn't do anything that a Biden or a Johnson or any other white incumbent wouldn't have done. So what was the point of his being black president? All these innocent black people are being detained. Innocent black people are being starved and kept hungry. Innocent black people are being allowed to rot in dozens and dozens and dozens of confrontations taking place across Africa, parts of Asia, and parts of Latin America. And many of the things that Obama did have already been discredited and exposed as sham and dishonest. So Biden, if Biden is to be condemned for being unfit, which is the purpose of the British ones kind of line against him, then they should be showing that they have the moral guts to accept that Guantanamo Bay contradicts all their morality and all their claims. I mean, what are they preventing? Because the extraction of confessions from many of the detainees have been done illegally, and this word illegally is not to be taken lightly. What role the Supreme Court in the USA has played in upholding the human rights what part of the Universal Declaration and the founding declarations founding the United Nations, what are the declarations that actually permit these violations? Where is the derogation? Where is the sanction for the impunity for illegally keeping people in detention for years without trial and without evidence? That's the point. So what Imran Khan should be doing when he talks about the imported government in Pakistan, he should not be talking about that. He should be talking about what the imported government is motivated by, which is scripted by, encouraged by, led by. The example of the USA state. The USA state is not protecting the ordinary basic human rights of the USA citizens. And it goes on. So the narrative should not be about whether Biden should run or not. The narrative should be about whoever runs for that office should be held to account by citing to them, by applying to their behavior the highest requirements that the United States as a country is signed up to currently. The same applies to the UK, the same applies to France, to Germany, and other countries. There is a piece that I have tweeted a few days ago from a magazine, piece by Shashi Tharoor. Now, Shashi Tharoor is from Kerala in India. He's a leading Congress member and was for several years, when the Congress party was in government, India's diplomatic representative at the UNO, where he served as Assistant Secretary General and was rumored a few times to be one of the contenders for the post of Secretary General. Regardless of that, Shashi Tharoor is the one Indian that internationally has been hard about, without the contamination that associates with the others. But his criticism of the Modi government is too timid. Too timid. Is that all Shashi Tharoor can offer? I mean, what he says? He says that the conviction of Rahul Nehru is proof of the diminution of democracy in India. Fuck him. Where has he been? What about Kashmir? What about the census in Assam and other parts? I mean, Mamata Banerjee in West Bengal has taken a perfectly factual, fact-based, evidence-based stand in opposing many of the fascistic, Hindutva, anti-Muslim, criminal abuses of the state by Modi and Amit Shah. What has stopped Shashi Tharoor, who he's not a minister, he's not an official in any government position now, What has it? What has stopped him from studying what Mamata Banerjee has been saying? If Mamata Banerjee can say that, what stops Shashi Tharoor from saying the same thing? Because by taking the stance that she has been taking, Mamata Banerjee has only partially, not even 50%, only partially, like 5% of the 100, say, items and the quantity of 100, let's say, issues that Modi has been guilty of, she has handled 5%. And if you look at the general regard in parts of India, in parts of Indian very servile media, they have been forced, because of the absence of any alternative, to recognize the stand that Mamata Banerjee has taken. She should not have to be the only one. I mean, Rajiv Nehru's son, Rahul Nehru, and his daughter, Priyanka, politically, not dynastically, politically, not courageous enough, not knowledgeable enough. Why? Why are these people still holding the prominent posts in the Congress party? And there is no sign of the, I mean, it's a huge demography. How come that there is nobody else? In a country of more than 1 billion people, I mean, there is only Mamata Banerjee you can hear about. Can you believe that? And the sacrilege of all the values that Modi kind of pretends he adheres to. Of course, he lies, but all the ones that are staged by the likes of the Financial Times, because the Financial Times regularly runs pieces about India. Mostly, these are timid people. The Indian writers that the Financial Times carries are token displays that the FT is actually covering India. It's covering up India and the lies. And by doing that, it is denying 1,300,000,000 people of India the truth and the service. And there are so many other abuses going on. I mean, if we take the contextually, take the role being played by the what is called South cinema. The Indian cinema is kind of more popular that is produced in the South, southern languages. Telugu, one of the leading ones. These scripts are written by the BJP, and many of the Indian film actors are members of the BJP. It's not a secret. They're openly being members, because if they didn't belong to the BJP as members, I mean, this is something that is not known in any similar demography anywhere else. If they didn't belong to the BJP, the RSS offshoot, in agenda, I'm not overcome. I'm ignoring the kind of little local difficulties that the RSS today has with parts of the other kind of alliance constituents. I mean, the film actors, why do they have to be members of the BJP? And the answer is that that is what was being done in the cultural revolution, I suppose, in China under the Mao Zedong and the USSR. These are not memberships that are independently entered into. These are memberships that are requirements of the regime, which shows the fascistic regime in place. And the scripts, most of the popular so-called super hits are brazenly propaganda things about war with Pakistan and Muslims. I have no problem with that theme. But there is nothing about the mass murders of Muslims, mass rapes of Muslims, and mass denials of justice and equal access to Indian institutions, facilities, and services. I mean, Puneet Rajkumar was, well, he was still being praised in South, in Karnataka. One of the films that he acted in alongside Radhika Pandit had a scene in a cafe. I've mentioned this before, but in the context of this particular update, I'll mention it again. So there is a conversation going on between Radhika Pandit and Puneet Rajkumar. And for about 10 seconds, an image with wearing a Muslim cap and a Muslim shirt appears and addresses Puneet Rajkumar with a kind of reverence that Muslims would not normally show to somebody like Puneet Rajkumar. But that was the script and that was the scene. And the conversation was allegedly in Urdu. The man asked Puneet Rajkumar how he was and how his family was, and similar kind of exchange of greetings. And as soon as the man disappeared, that is faded out, Radhika Pandit character said, as if she was surprised, that Puneet Rajkumar could also speak in Urdu. How the fuck? Urdu is an Indian language, for fuck's sake. Urdu developed in the parts near Delhi, you fucking shits. And Urdu is being suppressed. But despite the suppression, Urdu is more powerful in many aspects linguistically, culturally, than Hindi is. But how did the fuckers doing this film even think of including that scene? And why did Radhika Pandit, who is supposedly married to Yash, who is supposed to be enlightened, agree to the stupid conversation? The fact that they did, and Punit Rajkumar did as well, shows the complete corruption of the Indian movie industry and the brainwashing of the people who actually get brainwashed by the propaganda contained overt and covert in their contents. Nobody is talking about them. Nobody is trying to stop them. And I would say that the debate between the Muslims and the Hindus that led to the 1947 settlement, if you like, is a debate that is being suppressed by, it should have been going on for the 76 years, because all the issues are very much alive. Here is the point about the criminal Bangladeshi intellectual, Bengali intellectual called Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury. Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury is the liar who blames M.A. Jinnah for the shooting in 1952 of the students protesting for the linguistic rights, Bengali language to be made one of the national languages of Pakistan at that time. So Abdul Kuffar Chowdhury is a liar, as is everyone else who says that it was 21st of February 1952. These are traitors beyond condemnation. If these fuckers believe that Bangla language has got the right, equal right, then they should not be ever referring to the calendar that is not Bengali. It's imperialistic. Macaulay's calendar. The date should be 8th of Falgun. So just put that there as a reminder. I've spoken extensively about the 8th of Falgun before. Now over to the Times newspaper of Saturday, which has got a timely, if you like, reminder of the criminality that is the British licensed medical trade, medical career profession. It's a piece by a woman called Claire Cohen, and she is talking about a condition that she suffered, and hopefully she is not suffering anymore, but you cannot be sure about an end to this. So I'm looking for the magazine, the Times magazine of Saturday, so that I can actually read the item from Claire Cohen. All right, let's check if we can find the item online from some of the posts that we have made and read So when she went to, well, she went through, she's aged 39, and she says that most of my adult life has been spent in agony because of this condition. We'll come to that condition after the brief introduction. After suffering from the condition and suffering the equally absolutely corrupt and hurtful and nightmarish idiocies of so many doctors, she says she found a private consultant who put me on a roulette of very strong antibiotics, none of which made a difference. There was talk of a bladder infection, after which came more drugs. Then she says pointedly, the goal never appeared to be to locate the root cause of my pain, only to manage it. When, emboldened by what I had been reading at work, and she was working at a newspaper, I asked, is it possible that I could have something like endometriosis? And when she said that, let me just get to the bottom of that one, because this is a highlighted bit that I have found. Let's get to the endometriosis. And I have to check on that one again. One of the very rare persons in the whole of the English, if you like, narrative that I could almost tolerate the role of, if you like, was one of the people who suffered from the same condition, endometriosis. Now, endometriosis is a disease of the female reproductive system in which cells similar to those in the endometrium, the layer of tissue that normally covers, and we have to read the whole thing there. So this is something to do with the female reproductive organ. So let's read the whole thing, the whole introduction there. So endometriosis is a disease of female reproductive system in which cells similar to those in the endometrium, the layer of tissue that normally covers the inside of the uterus, grow outside the uterus. So that's an abnormality. Lesions can be found on ovaries, fallopian tubes, tissue around the uterus and ovaries, intestines, bladder, and diaphragm. It may also occur in other parts of the body. Some symptoms include pelvic pain, heavy periods, pain with bowel movements, painful urination, and infertility. Nearly half of those affected have chronic pelvic pain, while in 70% of the cases, pain occurs during menstruation. Pain during sexual intercourse is also common. Infertility occurs in up to half of affected individuals. About 25% of individuals have no symptoms and 85% of those seen with infertility in a tertiary center have no pain. Endometriosis can have both social and psychological effects. This is the entry on the subject on Wikipedia. The cause is not entirely clear. Risk factors include having a family history of the condition. The areas of endometriosis bleed each month, menstrual period, resulting in inflammation and scarring. So, this is quite a formidable obstacle that a woman has to live with, suffer from. And it's a part of gynecology, pelvic pain, infertility, and it is usually, according to this entry, common among 20 to 40 years old. So she's just in the right age group, 39, and the duration is long term. Causes, according to this entry, unknown. And family history diagnostic method based on symptoms, medical imaging, issue biopsy, differential diagnosis, pelvic inflammatory diseases, irritable bowel symptoms, interstitial cystitis, and other. And prevention, it says, combined birth control pills, exercise, avoiding alcohol and caffeine. Now, I don't know what, the piece that she has written, Claire Cohen, the piece that she has written and published in the magazine, the Times magazine on Saturday, has got information there about her frustration and her surprise and her feeling not really properly treated. And I shall come to that. So there are 2 pages of the Times magazine that contain the main piece, pages 48 and 49. And the page 48 has got the picture of this writer and the radio broadcaster, Emma is the one that is pictured next to the now deceased writer, Hilary Mantel. Now, Hilary Mantel is the one that I said I had a considerable respect for in terms of the various honest comments that she made about the history and society. So, but Emma Barnett, I have no positive comments about. But this is the thing that I think the magazine editors decided to feature these 2 because of the topicality and the attraction to the, if you like, publicity to the cause. Now, what the piece, we shall discuss at length in a later edition, what this piece actually brings to my mind, that the idea of the National Health Service was an excellent one. But the idea of the National Health Service, in my understanding, has been fucked up at every level. And I've said that both the Labour Party and the Conservatives and the Lib Dems have betrayed the idea of the National Health Service. Because all these parties are corrupt, and all these parties are hostile to accountability, to audit. I never went to hospital until last year. And I stayed in hospital for the first time in my life for 3 calendar months. And the amazing evidence that I observed, I didn't choose to go there. I needed a lot of persuading, if you like, to go. And the reason why I needed persuading is because of the evidence that I found. I knew I would find those. There is no line managerial accountability. And there is no fitness for purpose accountability. And I'm not talking about the people being like miniature Harold Shipmans. I came across a number of what they call consultants who would pay a visit to the bed. They would pass through the beds in the ward and they would stay there literally for maximum of 3 minutes at most. There is no way that a conversation can take place even if it is 10 minutes long. Substantial conversation. But that is the routine. That is the routine. And I'm not naming any of the consultants for creating that. But I think they have a particular responsibility to think about what they're doing. As for the nurses, there is hardly any nurse. What you have are staff that are in the ward, but they're not nurses. The one nurse that is there, but for legal reasons, I'm not naming her. People reading about the nurses would be shocked to find how distant, quote, the nurse is from the so-called patient. I didn't go to a GP for a very long time, especially after visiting one GP in Tower Hamlets long time ago, where I found the GP's wife at the reception, and she was very hostile when I asked questions about the GP's previous activities. So it is nothing to do with the health service whatsoever. And then the other GPs that were there in the vicinity or in the neighborhood, I really didn't go to them for any medical reasons, but I knew about them because I've been organizing various campaigns and issues, and I've come across the various empirical witnesses, testimonies about people. But the GPs, one GP surgery, everyone knows. Everyone in the community knows, or at least everyone in the community who actually pays any attention knows that one GP surgery was allegedly burgled almost every week. Think about that. One GP surgery in Tower Hamlets was said to be burgled every single week. On about three separate occasions when I visited, remember, I wasn't there visiting for medical purposes, but for campaign reasons, I visited that particular address in the vicinity of Commercial Road. I found, or I saw, scattered on the floor and on the tables various files belonging to patients and other documents. I could see that. I didn't touch them, but I saw those. I mean, what? I mean, you could not imagine that in a faraway so called banana republic. On my last visit in the, let me just remember the date or the decade. I think in the 1980s, I visited the Royal London Hospital in Whitechapel. Again, really, to check, to carry out a short or undergo a very short checkup, as they say. And when I spoke to the consultant, he asked me he asked me to explain to him the reason why I needed a written statement of what I had been kind of found to have or found to be in the position of or be in the state of. That was in the 1980s. And I said, no way am I going there again. Because what he asked me, technically could have been asked. But given that I was a patient who had just undergone a sort of brief test by somebody on something that I wanted to keep a record on, I mean, the question was staggering. All the legislation and all the international treaties, agreements, declarations, etc., entitle anyone going through that kind of process or procedure to know the basic facts about their health. If it is denied, then it is in violation of all those agreements and treaties. So when Claire Cohen writes the piece that she has written, I was expecting her to take into account the actual legal, constitutional, and ethical foundation and framework which should govern and dictate health service. She, of course, admits that she could afford the private kind of sector, which she tried. But I don't make any distinction in terms of the culture. Because regardless of whether it's private or it's part of the NHS, the standard of, let's say, service or care is too low, too dangerously low. Now, of course, Claire is writing in that piece in the Times on Saturday in a personal capacity. She's not writing as a specialist or whatever. And she's not pretending to be writing for other people. But it is astonishing that the numbers of doctors that gave her the identical kind of standard, routine, irrelevant question, including stressing that her pain possibly might be to do with the fact that her underwear was or were too tight. How the fuck? How they even thought? This is a highly articulate individual, and she would have, at every meeting or every encounter, every communication, every interaction, would have explained to them what she was feeling and what she was going through. How could her underwear being tight come into that? What she was suffering was internal, nothing to do with her dress or her clothes. The fact that they did ask her that shows the sheer level of stupidity. So, what I'm saying here is that the idea of the National Health Service was never carried out. And when you read things like Boris Johnson allegedly being treated at London Hospital during the COVID-19 and his praise and thanks and all the rest of it, you have to understand that that is not the experience of 99% of the people, and that was an orchestrated propaganda thing by Johnson. Similarly, when David Cameron publicly stated about his experience of contact with the health personnel over his son who suffered a particular condition or illness, you have to make that as an extremely exceptional thing to do with the position of this person. Ordinary people are not provided that kind of support, which, if the idea of the National Health Service at the point of need is were to be implemented, then that would have been the case in the majority of the overwhelming majority of the case of the people. I'm not disregarding the dispute about pay and all that, but that is regardless. So you take the issue of the care into the care aspects of care homes and care aspects of the social service section, the bureaucracy that is operated at considerable cost by each of the local councils. The sheer consolidated stupidity, ignorance, contempt, and lack of care exhibited by social service so-called personnel installed in the local councils concerned is so worrying that it will take several essays length of pieces, which we shall be doing. I have mentioned in the past the case of a London resident disabled woman with multiple needs whose daily care needs were significant. That particular individual was misled by somebody biologically close to her who lied to her and took her to Bangladesh in May 2001. And she was there until she passed away 15, 16 years later. Now, of course, that is a long story, but to tell the story stage by stage, aspect by aspect, would show the Tower Hamlets Council, in this case, involved council, is not only not caring, but is an organized criminal outfit. Now, for 6, 7 years, the last 6, 7 years of her life, Lutfur Rahman was in post as the elected executive mayor. And Lutfur Rahman has a lot of responsibility for the atrocities caused to this very vulnerable, frightened, and abused person. So this is the end of this particular program that we have come to about 1 hour, 58 minutes nearly. Shall be continuing on all the topics and update and extend, elaborate on them in due course. We're bringing an end to this one at 22:40 approximately, maybe 22:39 hours GMT on Sunday, this 16th of April 2023.